Hello. I'm going to be reading a book today. It's going to be The Concise Laws of Human Nature by Greene. And this will be the first book I read, so this has been quite impactful and beneficial to my life, and I hope we can have the same type of effect on you. Thank you for joining. So, The Concise Laws of Human Nature. Introduction. If you come across any special trait of meanness or stupidity, you must be careful not to let it annoy or distress you, but to look upon it merely as an addition to your knowledge. A new fact to be considered in studying the character of humanity. Your attitude towards it will be that of a mineralogist who stumbles upon a very characteristic specimen of a mineral. Quote by Arthur Chopinier. Throughout the course of our lives, we inevitably have to deal with a variety of individuals who stir up trouble and make our lives difficult and unpleasant. Some of these individuals are leaders or bosses, some are colleagues, and some are friends. They can be aggressive or passive-aggressive, but they are generally masters at playing on our emotions. They often appear charming and refreshingly confident, brimming with ideas and enthusiasm, and we will fall under their spell only when it is too late do we discover that their confidence is rational and their ideals ill-conceived. Among colleagues, they can be those who sabotage our work or careers out of secret envy, excited to bring us down, or they can be colleagues or hires who reveal to our dismay that they are completely out for themselves, using us as only stepping stones. What inevitably happens in these situations is that we are caught off guard, not expecting such behavior. Often, these types will hit us with elaborate cover stories to justify their actions, or blame handy scapegoats. They know how to confuse and draw us into drama. We might protest or become angry, but in the end, we feel rather helpless. The damage is done. Then another such type enters our life, and the same story repeats itself. We often notice a similar sensation of confusion and helplessness when it comes to ourselves and our own behavior. For instance, we suddenly say something that offends our boss or colleague or friend. We're not quite sure where it came from, but we're frustrated to find out that some anger and tension from within us has leaked out in a way that we now regret. Or perhaps we enthusiastically throw our weight into some project or scheme, only to realize it was quite foolish and a terrible waste of time. Or perhaps we fall in love with a person who is precisely the wrong type for us, and we know it, but we cannot help ourselves. What has come over us, we wonder? In these situations, we catch ourselves falling into self-destructive patterns of behavior that we cannot seem to control. It is as we harbor a stranger within us, a little demon who operates independently of our willpower and pushes us into doing things, the wrong things. And this stranger within us is rather weird, or at least weirder than how we imagine ourselves. Hard to believe that. You know what I mean. What we can say about these two things, people's ugly actions and our own occasionally surprising behaviors, is that we usually have no clue as to what causes them. We might latch on to some simple explanations: that person is evil, a sociopath, or something came over me. I just wasn't myself. But such pat descriptions do not lead to any understanding or prevent the same patterns from reoccurring. The truth is, we humans live on the surface, reacting emotionally to what people say and do. We form opinions of others and ourselves that are rather simplified. We settle for the easiest and most convenient story to tell ourselves. What if, however, We could dive below the surface, see deep within, getting closer to actual roots of what causes human behavior. What if we could understand why people turn envious and try to sabotage our work? Or why their misplaced confidence causes them to imagine themselves as godlike and infallible? What if we could truly fathom why people suddenly behave irrationally and reveal a much darker side to their character? Or why they're always ready to provide a rationalization for their behavior? Or why we continually turn to leaders who appeal to us, who appeal to the worst in us? What if we could look deep inside and judge people's character, avoiding the bad hires and the personal relationships that cause us so much emotional damage? Ooh, I like what this guy's selling. What if we understood the roots of human behavior? It would be much harder for the more destructive types to continually get away with their actions. We would not be so easily charmed and misled. We would be able to anticipate their nasty manipulative maneuvers and see through their cover stories. We would not allow ourselves to get dragged into their dramas, knowing in advance that our interests is what they depend on most for their control. We would finally rob them of their power through our ability to look into the depths of their character. Similarly, with ourselves, what if we could look within and see the source of our troubling emotions and why they drive our behavior, often against our own wishes? What if we could understand why we are so compelled to desire what other people have, or to identify strongly with a group that we feel contempt for those who are on the outside? What if we could find out what causes us to lie about who we are, or to inadvertently push people away? Being able to understand more clearly that stranger within us would help us to realize that it is not a stranger at all, but very much a part of ourselves, and that we are far more mysterious, complex, and interesting than we had imagined. And with that awareness, we would be able to break the negative patterns of our lives, stop making excuses for ourselves, and gain better control of what we do and what happens to us. Having such clarity about ourselves and others could change the course of our lives in so many ways. But first, we must clear up a common misconception. We tend to think our behavior is as largely conscious and willed. To imagine that we are not always in control of what we do is a frightening thought, but in fact, it is the reality. We are subject to forces deep within us that drive our behavior and operate below the level of our awareness. We see the results, our thoughts, moods, and actions, but have little conscious access to what actually moves our emotions and compels us to behave in certain ways. Let us call the collection of these forces that push and pull us from deep within human nature. Let me reread that. Let us call the collection of these forces that push and pull at us from deep within human nature. Human nature stems from the particular wiring of our brains, the configuration of our nervous system, and the way we humans process emotion, all of which developed and emerged over the course of 5 million or so years. So our evolution as a spike. We can ascribe many of the details of our nature to the distinct ways we evolved as a social animal to ensure our survival, learning to cooperate with others, coordinating our actions with the group on a high level, creating novel forms of communication and ways of maintaining group discipline. This early development lives on within us and continues to determine our behavior, even in the modern sophisticated world that we live in. To take one example, look at the evolution of human emotion The survival of our earliest ancestors depended on their ability to communicate with another. Well, before the invention of language, they evolved new and complex emotions as joy, shame, gratitude, jealousy, resentment, etc. The signs of these emotions could be read immediately on their faces, communicating their moods quickly and effectively. They became extremely permeable to the emotions of others as a way to bind the group more tightly together, to feel joy or grief as one, or to remain united in the face of danger. To this day, we, humans, remain highly susceptible to the moods and emotions of those around us, compelling all kinds of behavior on our part, unconsciously limiting others, wanting what they have, getting swept up in viral feelings of anger or outrage. We imagine we're acting of our own free will, unaware of how deeply our susceptibility to our emotions or of others in the group is affecting us and how we respond. We can point to each other. We can point to other such forces that emerged from this deep past and that similarly mold our everyday behavior. For instance, we need to continually rank ourselves and measure our self-worth through our status. Is a trait that is noticeable among all hunter-gatherer cultures, and even among chimpanzees, as our tribal instincts, which cause us to divide people into insiders and outsiders. We can add primitive qualities to our need to wear masks to disguise any behavior that is frowned upon by the tribe, leading to the formation of a shadow personality. From all the dark desires we have repressed, our ancestors understood this shadow, and it is dangerous. Imagining it originated from spirits and demons that needed to be exorcised. We rely on different myth. Something came over me. Once, this primal current of force within us reaches the level of consciousness, we have to react to it. And we do. We do so depending on our individual spirit and circumstance, usually explaining it away superficially without really understanding it. Because of the precise way in which we evolved, there are a limited number of these forces of human nature, and they lead to the behavior mentioned above, such as envy, grandiosity, irrationality, short-sightedness, conformity, aggression, and passive aggression, just to name a few. They also lead to empathy and other positive forms of human behavior. Because, of course, you have the negatives, you have to have the positives. It's just how it works. It's duality. For thousands of years, it has been our fate to largely group in the shadows when it comes to understanding ourselves and our own nature. We have labored under so many illusions about the human-animal imagining we descended magically from a divine source, from angels. Not angles, angels. Instead of primates. We have found any signs, I think that's meant to say many. We have found many signs of our primitive nature and our animal roots deeply distressing, something to deny and repress. We have covered up our darker impulses with all kinds of excuses and rationalizations, making it easier for some people to get away with the most unpleasant behavior. But finally, we are at a point where we can overcome our resistance to the truth about who we are through the sheer weight of knowledge we have now accumulated about human nature. Consider the laws of human nature, a kind of code, a book for deciphering people's ordinary, strange, destructive, the full gamut. Each chapter deals with a particular aspect or law of human nature. We can call them laws. In that, under the influence of these elemental forces, we humans tend to react in relatively predictable ways. Each chapter has ideas and strategies on how to deal with yourself and others under the influence of this law. Each chapter ends with a section on how to transform this basic human force into something more positive and productive, so that we are no longer passive slaves to human nature, but actively transforming it. You might be tempted to imagine that this knowledge is a bit old-fashioned. After all, you might argue we are now so sophisticated and technologically advanced, so progressive and enlightened, that we have moved well beyond our primitive roots. We are in the process of rewriting our nature, but the truth is, in fact, the opposite. We have never been more in the thrall of human nature and its destructive potential than now. Ignorance, my people! Can I get a ha? I don't know why I'm doing this. And by ignoring this fact, we are playing with fire. So true. Look at how the permeability of our emotions has only been heightened through social media, where viral effects are continually sweeping through us and where the most manipulative leaders are able to exploit and control us. Cognitive dissonance. Can I get a oh yeah? Look at the aggression that is now openly displayed in the virtual world, where it is much easier to now play out our shadow sides without repercussions. Notice how our propensities to compare ourselves with others, to feel envy, and to seek status through attention have only become intensified with our ability to communicate so quickly with so many people. And finally, look at our tribal tendencies and how they have found the perfect medium to operate in. We can find a group to identify with, reinforce our tribal opinions in a virtual echo chamber, and demonize any outsiders, leading to mob intimidation. Ooh. Sad but true. The potential for mayhem stemming from the primitive side of our nature has only increased. It is simple. Human nature is stronger than any individual, than any institution or technological invention. It ends up shaping what we create to reflect itself and its primitive roots. It moves us around like pawns. Ignore the laws at your own peril. Refusing to come to terms with human nature simply means that you are dooming yourself to the patterns beyond your control and the feelings of confusion and helplessness. Ooh. That's a reality check. The laws of human nature is designed to immerse you in all aspects of human behavior and illuminate its root causes. If you let it guide you, it will radically alter how you perceive people and your entire approach to dealing with them. It will also radically change how you see yourself. It will accomplish these shifts in perspective in the following ways. First, the laws will work to transform you into a calmer and more strategic observer of people, helping you to free from all of the emotional drama that needlessly drains you. Whew, doesn't that sound good? And that's only the first law. Gotta love that. Second, 2. The laws will make you a master interpreter of the cues that people continually emit, giving you a much greater ability to judge their character. Sounds pretty good. Third, the laws will empower you to take on and outthink the toxic types who inevitably cross your path and who tend to cause long-term emotional damage. Why wasn't this taught in schools? And fourth, the laws will teach you the true levels for motivating and influencing people, making your path in life that much easier. Fifth, the laws will make you realize how deeply the forces of human nature operate within you, giving you the power to alter your own negative patterns. Sixth, the laws will transform you into a more empathetic individual, creating deeper and more satisfying bonds with people around you. Seriously, why wasn't this taught in schools? And finally, because 7 is the best number ever, obviously, the laws will alter how you see your own potential, making you aware of a higher ideal self within you that you will want to bring out and show the world. Think of this book in the following way. You are about to become an apprentice in human nature. You will be developing some skills, how to observe and measure the character of your fellow humans and see into your own depth. You will work on bringing out your higher self, and through practice, you will emerge a master of the art, able to thwart the worst that other people can throw at you, and to mold yourself into a more rational, self-aware, and productive individual. And now a quote. Man will only become better when you make him see what he is truly like. Anton Chevauque. Alright, so that's the introduction. I'm going to save chapter 1 for the next video.